My daughter called me at 3 in the morning. She works for the FBI, and the first thing she said was not hello. It was not, "Mom, are you awake?" It was 5 words that changed my life forever. "Mom, turn everything off." I sat up in bed so fast my neck cracked. The house was pitch black. The only sound was the old grandfather clock Earl bought at an estate sale 20 years ago, ticking away in the hallway like it had no idea the world was about to fall apart. My name is Lorraine Beckett. I am 62 years old. I live alone in a 2-story farmhouse just outside Ridgefield, Connecticut, the same house my late husband Earl and I bought when we were barely 30 and stupid enough to think a crumbling roof and a half-acre of weeds was a dream come true. We turned it into a home. We raised 3 children here. Earl died 5 years ago from a heart attack at 59, right there in the kitchen, halfway through his morning coffee. The mug was still warm when the paramedics arrived. I have lived alone in this house ever since, and until that phone call, I thought the scariest thing I would ever experience in my life had already happened. I was wrong. My youngest daughter, Phoebe, is 36 years old. She joined the FBI straight out of college, and in 14 years, I have never once heard fear in her voice. Not when she worked her first major case, not when she was transferred to a field office 3 states away, not even when she called me from a hospital after a suspect broke her wrist during an arrest. Phoebe is steel-wrapped in patience. She gets that from Earl. She does not panic. She does not raise her voice. She handles things. So when I heard her voice shaking on the other end of that phone at 3 in the morning, something inside my chest locked up like a rusted hinge. "Phoebe, what is going on?" "Mom, listen to me very carefully. Do not turn on any lights. Do not make any noise. I need you to get out of bed. Grab your flashlight from the nightstand. Go up to the attic, lock the latch from inside, and stay there. Do not come down for anyone." My mouth went dry. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, thick and fast, like someone pounding on a door from the inside. "Phoebe, you are scaring me. I know, Mom, I know I am, and I am sorry, but I need you to do exactly what I am telling you, right now. Not in 5 minutes, right now." I pushed the blanket off my legs. My hands were trembling so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I found the flashlight in the nightstand drawer, right where it always is, next to Earl's old reading glasses that I still have not been able to throw away. "One more thing," Phoebe said, and her voice dropped so low I had to press the phone harder against my ear just to hear her. "Do not tell Tamsin." Tamsin, my daughter-in-law, married to my son Grant for 6 years, the woman who drives me to my doctor appointments, the woman who brings me groceries every Thursday, the woman who calls me Mom and kisses my cheek every time she walks through my front door. What does Tamsin have to do with anything? Mom, please, just do it. I am 45 minutes away. My partner and a team are coming with me. I will explain everything when I get there. But right now I need you in that attic with the door locked and your mouth shut. Can you do that for me? I wanted to argue. I wanted to demand answers. I wanted to call Grant and ask him what on earth was happening. But there was something in Phoebe's voice that I had never heard before. It was not just fear. It was the kind of fear that comes from knowing something terrible, something you cannot unsee, something that keeps you up at night staring at the ceiling, wondering how you are going to tell the person you love most in the world that they have been living next to a lie. So I did what she asked. I turned off my phone screen. I slid out of bed in the dark. I crept down the hallway in my bare feet, feeling the cold. Hardwood beneath my toes, past the framed family photos I could not see but knew by heart. Earl and me on our wedding day, Grant's high school graduation, Diane holding her first baby, Phoebe in her FBI Academy uniform, standing tall with that quiet pride she never needed to speak out loud. I reached the attic stairs, the narrow, creaky staircase that Earl always said he would fix and never did. I climbed each step slowly, holding my breath, like the air itself might betray me. At the top, I pulled the latch door shut behind me and slid the lock into place. The click echoed through the dark like a gunshot. I knelt on the dusty floorboards. Cobwebs brushed against my face. The attic smelled like old wood and mothballs and something faintly sweet that reminded me of the lavender sachets Earl's mother used to tuck into every drawer. I pressed my eye to a crack in the attic floor. It was a gap I had noticed years ago, just wide enough to see down into the living room below. I had always meant to patch it. Now I was grateful I never did. For 20 minutes I saw nothing, just darkness, just the outline of my furniture, just the ticking of that clock, steady and unbothered, marking time like nothing was wrong. Then I heard the back door open. It was not a knock. It was not a key fumbling in a lock. It was the slow, deliberate creak of someone who knew exactly which way to turn the handle to keep it from making noise. Someone who had opened that door many times before. Someone who knew this house almost as well as I did. A flashlight beam swept across the living room floor, and then I saw her. Tamsin. She moved through my house like she owned it. No hesitation, no looking around. She walked straight past the living room, past the kitchen, past the hallway where my family photos hung in the dark, and headed directly toward Earl's old office at the back of the house. My blood ran cold. Not the way people say it in stories, like a figure of speech, like a dramatic, little phrase to make something sound worse than it was. I felt the warmth drain from my hands and feet and face, like someone had opened a valve and let it all pour out onto that dusty attic floor. Because I understood something in that moment, something I could not yet put into words but felt in every bone of my body. She was not here to check on me. She was not here because she was worried. She was here because she thought I was asleep. She was here because she had a plan. And whatever that plan was, it involved the documents Earl left behind, the house I raised my children in, and the money that was supposed to carry me through the rest of my life. I stayed on my knees in that attic, trembling in the dark, watching the woman I called family move through my home like a thief in the night. And all I could think was one sentence, playing over and over in my mind like a record with a scratch. I let her in. I let her in. I let her in. Let me take you back 6 months before. That night, back to when my life still made sense, back to when I still believed that the people sitting at my kitchen table loved me the way I loved them. After Earl died, the house became a different place. Not smaller, bigger. That is what people do not tell you about grief. The rooms do not shrink around you. They expand. The hallways stretch longer. The ceilings climb higher. Every corner holds a conversation that will never happen again, and the silence is so loud it hums. I kept busy the way widows do. I tended my vegetable garden out back, the one Earl and I started the summer after Grant was born. Tomatoes, peppers, zucchini, a few rows of herbs that I gave away to neighbors because I could never use them all myself. I watched the evening news at 6 o'clock sharp, the same way Earl and I always did, except now the recliner next to mine was empty and I kept the volume one notch louder, so the room did not feel so quiet. I had my routine. Monday mornings, I drove to the post office to check my mail, even though I was retired from that very same post office after 34 years of service. Wednesdays, I went to the church quilting circle, where 6 of us sat around a table and pretended we were there for the quilts and not for the company. Sundays, I talked to Phoebe on the phone at 7 in the evening, never a minute late, because Phoebe runs her life like a train schedule, and I love that about her. My older daughter, Diane, lived up in Vermont with her husband and 2 kids. She called me twice a week and visited once a month when the weather allowed. Diane is the worrier in the family. She is the one who sends articles about scam phone calls and vitamin deficiencies and always asks if I have checked the batteries in my smoke detectors. She means well. She always has. Grant, my son, had moved back to the area about 2 years before Earl died. He had tried to start a small trucking logistics company with a friend, and the whole thing collapsed within a year, lost most of his savings. His credit was wrecked. He and Tamsin rented a place about 10 minutes down the road, and Grant went back to long-haul driving to keep them afloat. He was on the road 4 or 5 days a week, which meant Tamsin was home alone most of the time. That is how it started. Tamsin began showing up at my house the way rain begins, a little at first, then more, then every day. She would knock on my door mid-morning with a bag of groceries and that wide, easy smile of hers. "I was at the store anyway, Mom. Thought I would grab a few things for you." She started calling me Mom within a month of marrying Grant, and I will not lie, it made my heart swell. After Earl passed and the house went quiet, hearing someone call me Mom in that kitchen again felt like sunlight breaking through a week of clouds. She drove me to my doctor appointments. She picked up my prescriptions. She organized the junk drawer in the kitchen that I had been avoiding for 3 years. She even cleaned out Earl's closet one afternoon while I sat on the bed and cried, folding his shirts into neat little squares and placing them into donation bags with a gentleness that made me believe she truly cared. And then she offered to help with my finances. Mom, you should not have to worry about all this paperwork. Earl left everything in such good order, but it is a lot for one person to manage. Let me take some of it off your plate. I did not hesitate, not even for a second. Earl had left me comfortable. The house was paid off entirely. His life insurance had paid out $400,000, and I had most of it sitting in a savings account at our local credit union. I had his pension coming in monthly, plus my own retirement from the Postal Service. I was not rich by any stretch, but I had more than enough to live peacefully for the rest of my days. I gave Tamsin access to my bank account. I showed her where Earl kept the important documents, the deed to the house, the insurance policies, the tax records going back 15 years. I handed it all over like I was passing her a plate of cookies, because that is what you do with family. You trust them. You open the door and you let them in, and you do not stand there counting the silverware. Diane did not see it that way. Mom, why does she need access to your bank account? She barely knew Dad. She has known you for what? 4 years? Diane, she is Grant's wife. She is trying to help. Nobody helps that much without wanting something, Mom. I told Diane she was being unfair. I told her she was jealous because she lived 3 hours away and could not be here the way Tamsin was. I said things I am not proud of, and Diane went quiet the way she does when she is hurt, but too dignified to fight back. Phoebe came home for Thanksgiving that year. She sat at the table and smiled and ate and said all the right things, but I caught her watching Tamsin the way she watches everyone, quiet, observant, taking mental notes the way FBI agents do without even realizing they are doing it. Tamsin was wearing new earrings, diamond studs, and she had driven up in a new SUV that I knew Grant's salary could not afford. Phoebe did not say a word about it. Not to me. Not to anyone at that table. But I know now that she went back to Hartford after that weekend and started digging. I just wish she had dug faster. 3 months before that 3 a.m. call, I went to the bank to withdraw money for a new water heater. The old one had been groaning for weeks, and one morning it gave up entirely. I drove to the credit union, walked up to the counter, and asked to withdraw $2,800 from my savings account. The teller typed in my information. Then she paused. She looked at the screen. She looked at me. She looked at the screen again. Mrs. Beckett, are you aware of the recent activity on this account? What recent activity? She turned the monitor slightly so I could see the numbers. My savings account, which should have held just over $360,000, showed a balance of $241,000. Nearly $120,000 had been transferred out over the past 11 months in amounts ranging from $4,000 to $9,000 each, always just under $10,000, always to an account I did not recognize. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the counter and held on. There must be a mistake. I did not authorize any of those transfers. The teller's face was careful and professional, but I could see something behind her eyes, concern, maybe pity. She printed out a full statement and handed it to me. Page after page of withdrawals I had never made, never approved, never even known about. I drove home with that statement sitting on the passenger seat like a live grenade. My hands shook the entire way. I pulled into the driveway and sat there for 10 minutes staring at the front door of my house, trying to find a reason that was not the reason. I called Tamsin. She answered on the second ring, cheerful as always. Hey, Mom, everything okay? Tamsin, I went to the bank today. They showed me my account. There's a lot of money missing. There was a pause. Just a beat, just long enough for a normal person to miss. But it was there. Oh, Mom, that is what I told you about a few months ago. Remember? I moved some of your savings into a higher yield account. You are actually earning better interest now. I have all the paperwork right here if you want to see it. I wanted to believe her. God help me, I wanted to believe her more than I have ever wanted to believe anything in my life. Because if Tamsin was lying, then everything she had done for me in the past 2 years was a lie. Every grocery run, every doctor visit, every time she sat at my kitchen table and called me Mom. No, I trust you. I just got confused at the bank. Do not even worry about it. I will bring the statements over this weekend and we can go through them together, okay? Okay, sweetheart, thank you. I hung up the phone and sat in my kitchen alone. The statement was still in my hands. I folded it up and put it in the drawer next to the stove, underneath a stack of old recipe cards. And I did not look at it again, but someone else was looking. Back in Hartford, Phoebe had been running searches on Tamsin since Thanksgiving. At first, it was just curiosity. A few database checks during her lunch break, a couple of records requests that she filed quietly, telling no one at the bureau what it was about. What she found made her sit back in her chair and close her eyes. Tamsin's real name was not Tamsin Moore. She had legally changed it 7 years ago. Before that, she had gone by a different name entirely, and under that name, she had been married twice before Grant, both times to older men. Both times the pattern was identical. She moved in close. She offered help. She gained financial access. And then she drained them dry. Her first husband lost his home and filed for bankruptcy within 18 months of marrying her. Her second husband, a retired electrician in his late 60s, died of a sudden cardiac event. The circumstances were flagged by a neighbor who found it suspicious, but the investigation went nowhere because there was not enough evidence. Tamsin vanished after both marriages, changed her name, changed her state, and started over. Phoebe printed every document she could find. She spread them across her desk and stared at the timeline. Her jaw was tight. Her hands were steady. But inside, she was terrified. Because this was not a case file about a stranger. This was her mother. She started building a formal case. Wire fraud, identity fraud, elder financial exploitation. She brought in her partner, Agent Ruben Salazar, and told him everything. Salazar listened without interrupting, then said one sentence that Phoebe already knew. "We need to move fast. If she gets power of attorney, your mother loses everything." Phoebe stared at him. "She already has it." 2 weeks earlier, Tamsin had sat at Lorraine's kitchen table with a document and a pen. She explained that power of attorney was just a safety measure, something practical, something every family should have in place, especially for someone living alone at Lorraine's age. Lorraine signed it without reading past the first paragraph, because Tamsin handed her the pen with that same warm smile and said, "This is just to protect you, Mom." Phoebe did not know about the signing until she pulled the county records. When she saw that document on her screen, she pushed back from her desk, walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and cried for the first time in 4 years. Then she washed her face, went back to her desk, and started working twice as fast. Phoebe spent the next 3 weeks building her case like a woman laying bricks in a storm. Every night after her regular shift ended, she stayed at her desk. Salazar stayed with her. They pulled financial records, cross-referenced Tamsin's previous identities, traced the money transfers from my account to a series of shell accounts that Tamsin had set up under yet another name. The trail was careful, methodical. The work of someone who had done this before and learned from every mistake. But Phoebe knew paperwork alone would not be enough. She needed to catch Tamsin in the act. She needed something undeniable, something a judge would look at and say there is no other explanation. And then she got it. A contact at the county clerk's office flagged a filing that had come in 2 days earlier. Someone had submitted preliminary paperwork to begin a property title transfer on my house, the farmhouse, the one Earl and I bought when we were young and broke and full of dreams, the one where I raised my children, the one where I planned to die someday in my own bed, in my own home, surrounded by the walls that held every memory I had ever made. Tamsin was transferring the deed into her name. She had used the power of attorney I signed to initiate the process. The final filing was scheduled for the following Monday, 5 days away. Phoebe called Salazar at 11 that night. "We go this weekend. We cannot wait." She spent the next 2 days securing a federal warrant. Wire fraud across state lines gave her federal jurisdiction. Elder financial exploitation added weight. The forged aspects of the power of attorney, where Tamsin had misrepresented her identity on a legal document, gave them forgery. It was enough. A judge signed the warrant on Friday afternoon. Then Phoebe sat in her car in the bureau parking lot and made the hardest phone call of her life. It was 3 a.m. on a Saturday. She had driven halfway to Ridgefield before she dialed my number because she wanted to be as close as possible in case something went wrong. Her partner, Salazar, was in the vehicle behind her with a 4-person tactical team. They were 35 minutes out. When I answered, my voice was thick with sleep and confusion. Phoebe told me later that hearing me say hello nearly broke her composure because I sounded exactly the way I did when she was a little girl and would crawl into my bed during a thunderstorm, soft, trusting, completely unaware that anything was wrong. She kept her voice as steady as she could. "Mom, turn everything off. Do not turn on any lights. I need you to go to the attic right now." "Phoebe, what is happening? It is 3 a.m. "I know, Mom. I know what time it is, and I would not be calling you at this hour if it was not serious. I need you to listen to me and do exactly what I say." She told me about the attic, the latch, the flashlight. She told me to stay silent no matter what I heard below, and then she told me the part that split my heart in two. "Do not tell Tamsin. Do not call Grant. Mom, Tamsin is not who she says she is. She has been stealing from you. She has done this before, to other people, under other names, and tonight we have reason to believe she is coming to the house to collect documents she needs to finalize a property transfer. She is trying to take your home." I could not speak. The words hit me one at a time, like stones dropping into still water, each one sinking deeper than the last. Stealing from me, other names. Take your home. "Mom, are you there?" "I am here. I need you to move. Right now. Can you do that?" I swung my legs off the bed. The floor was cold. The house was dark. I reached into the nightstand drawer and found the flashlight right where it always was, resting against Earl's reading glasses. I did not turn it on. I just held it against my chest and walked. The hallway stretched out in front of me like a tunnel. I passed Grant's old bedroom door. I passed the bathroom where I used to bathe all 3 of my children in a row on Sunday nights, youngest to oldest. Phoebe first because she was the smallest. I passed the family photos on the wall, faces I could not see in the dark but could feel watching me. Earl's face among them, steady and kind and gone. I reached the attic stairs. I climbed them one at a time, placing each foot carefully, avoiding the 3rd step from the top because it has creaked since 1994, and I have memorized that sound the way you memorize a scar. I pulled the latch door shut. I slid the lock into place. The click was small, but it echoed through that dark, dusty space like a door closing on the life I thought I knew. I knelt down. I pressed my eye to the crack in the floor. And I waited. 20 minutes later, the back door opened. She moved through the house like she had rehearsed it. No fumbling, no hesitation. Tamsin walked past the living room without even glancing at the furniture. She did not check the kitchen. She did not look upstairs toward my bedroom. She went straight to Earl's office. At the back of the house, like a woman walking a path she had walked 100 times before. I watched her through that crack in the attic floor, my knees pressed into the dusty wood, my hand clamped over my mouth so hard I could feel my own teeth against my palm. She had a flashlight in one hand and a leather folder tucked under her arm. She was dressed in dark clothes, no jewelry, no perfume. This was not the Tamsin who brought me groceries with a smile and kissed my cheek at the door. This was someone I had never seen before. She opened Earl's filing cabinet, the one I had shown her myself, proudly, stupidly, pointing out every drawer and every folder like I was giving her a guided tour of my entire life. She pulled out the folder labeled Deed. She pulled out the one labeled Insurance. She pulled out the one labeled Bank. She spread them across Earl's desk and began photographing every page with her phone, her flashlight propped against a stack of books to keep her hands free. Then she made a call. She kept her voice low, but the house was silent and sound travels through old wood like water through cloth. I caught pieces of the conversation, each one landing in my chest like a nail. "She is not here. Probably at Diane's or something. It does not matter. I have the deed copies. We file the transfer Monday morning. Grant does not need to know the full amount. He thinks it is $40,000. The rest goes into the Reno account." She was not just stealing from me. She was stealing from her own husband. Grant, my son, who had gone back to driving long-haul trucks to keep their bills paid while Tamsin sat in my kitchen and helped herself to everything my husband left behind. I pressed my forehead against the attic floor and squeezed my eyes shut. My whole body was shaking, not from the cold, from the understanding, from the full, crushing weight of knowing that every single moment of kindness from this woman had been calculated. Every grocery bag, every prescription pickup. Every time she held my hand and called me Mom. All of it was architecture. She had built a house of trust around me, and I had walked into it willingly and handed her the keys. Then I heard the sound I had been praying for. Tires on gravel. Not one vehicle. Several. Moving slowly, deliberately, the way you approach something when you do not want to spook it. Tamsin heard it too. She froze at the desk, her phone still in her hand, the documents spread out in front of her like a confession. The front door opened first, then the back door, both at the same time. Flashlight beams swept through the house from two directions. I heard heavy footsteps and low voices and the unmistakable authority of people who do this for a living. FBI, do not move. That was Salazar, calm and flat like he was reading the weather. Phoebe was right behind him. I could hear her voice giving instructions to the team, professional and steady, but I knew my daughter. I knew that. Underneath that composure, her heart was pounding just as hard as mine. Tamsin tried to talk her way out of it. Of course she did. That was what she was built for. This is my mother-in-law's house. I have every right to be here. She asked me to pick up some documents for her. Salazar did not blink. At 3:30 in the morning, with forged power of attorney paperwork and photographs of property deeds on your phone. Ma'am, you are under arrest. They put her in handcuffs right there in Earl's office, right there next to his desk, his filing cabinet, the chair where he used to sit every April doing our taxes with a pencil and a calculator because he never trusted computers. They read her rights while she stood in the room my husband built with his own hands, surrounded by the evidence of everything she had tried to take from me. Phoebe came upstairs herself. She climbed those narrow attic steps and knocked on the latch door softly. Mom, it is me. It is over. I unlocked the latch with hands that could barely grip the metal. Phoebe pulled the door open and looked at me kneeling there in the dark, dusty and shaking and tear-streaked. And for just one moment, she was not an FBI agent. She was my little girl. She reached for me, and I reached for her, and we held on to each other on those attic stairs like two people who had almost lost everything. She walked me down to the porch. The night air hit my face, and I breathed it in like I had been underwater for hours. 3 black SUVs sat in my driveway with their lights still flashing. Agents moved in and out of my house carrying evidence bags and folders and Tamsin's phone, sealed in a clear plastic pouch. And then they brought her out. Tamsin walked between 2 agents, her hands cuffed behind her back, her face completely blank. No tears, no anger, no shame, just emptiness, like a mask that had finally been removed to reveal nothing underneath. She passed within 10 feet of me. Our eyes met. I said the only thing I could. I treated you like my own daughter. She looked at me for 1 second. Then she looked away and kept walking. She did not say a single word. And somehow that silence was louder than anything she could have said. The sun came up that morning like it always does, steady, indifferent. The sky turned pink and gold over the fields behind my house, and I sat on the porch wrapped in a wool blanket that smelled like mothballs and lavender, watching the last FBI vehicle pull out of my driveway and disappear down the road. Phoebe sat beside me in Earl's old rocking chair. Neither of us spoke for a long time. There are moments in life where silence is not empty. It is full of everything you survived and everything you almost did not. The investigation moved quickly after that night. Phoebe and Salazar had built a case so thorough that Tamsin's attorney advised her to cooperate before the first hearing even began. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records showing $187,000 in fraudulent transfers from my accounts. Forged power of attorney documents filed under an identity Tamsin had fabricated 7 years earlier. A property title transfer initiated without my knowledge or genuine consent. Photographs on her phone of every financial document in Earl's office. and recorded phone conversations from that night captured by the Bureau's surveillance team, in which Tamsin laid out her entire plan in her own words to an accomplice in Nevada. She never went to trial. She pleaded guilty to federal wire fraud, elder financial exploitation, identity fraud, and forgery. The judge sentenced her to 8 years in a federal correctional facility. During the sentencing, the prosecutor revealed that 2 previous cases connected to Tamsin's former identities were being reopened. The retired electrician, who died under suspicious circumstances during her second marriage. The first husband, who lost everything and filed for bankruptcy. Both cases had gone cold. They were not cold anymore. With the court's help and Phoebe's guidance, I recovered $141,000 of the stolen funds. The remaining $46,000 was gone. Tamsin had spent it on the SUV, the jewelry, the clothes, and transfers to accounts that were emptied and closed before the Bureau could reach them. The forged power of attorney was voided entirely. The property transfer was canceled. The house stayed in my name, right where it belonged. Grant found out everything the morning after the arrest. Phoebe sat him down at my kitchen table and told him the truth about the woman he had married. She did not soften it. She did not spare him. She told him about the stolen money, the fake identity, the previous marriages, the property transfer he knew nothing about, and the phone call where Tamsin admitted she had been hiding the full amount from him the entire time. Grant did not yell. He did not argue. He sat at that table with his hands flat on the wood and his head bowed, and he cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, steady tears rolling down his face and landing on the same table where Tamsin had handed me a pen and told me to sign. He and Tamsin divorced within 2 months. Grant moved into a small apartment about 15 minutes away. He did not ask me for money. He did not ask me for forgiveness. He just started showing up every Saturday morning with his work gloves and his toolbox. He fixed the leaky gutter I had been ignoring for 2 years. He replaced the rotted boards on the back porch. He rebuilt the raised garden beds that Earl had built 20 years ago, and that time had slowly pulled apart. One Saturday, he was standing in the garden, pulling weeds, dirt on his knees, sweat on his forehead, and he stopped and looked at me, sitting in my chair under the maple tree. "Mom, I should have seen it. I brought her into your life. Everything she did to you is because of me." I looked at my son, my boy. The child who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during thunderstorms, and who once brought me a fistful of dandelions and called them roses. "You did not see it because you loved her. That is not a crime, Grant. The crime is what she did with that love." He nodded and went back to pulling weeds. And that was enough. Some things do not need a long conversation. They just need a Saturday morning and a garden and the quiet agreement that we are going to keep showing up for each other. Diane drove down from Vermont the week after the arrest and stayed for 2 straight weeks. She cooked for me. She sat with me on the porch. She organized the paperwork that the FBI had returned and filed everything into a new cabinet she bought with her own money. She never once said "I told you so." Not once. She just held my hand one evening while we watched the sun go down and said 5 words that undid me completely. "You are safe now, Mom." I cried harder than I had cried since Earl's funeral, because she was right, and because I had almost lost everything before I even knew it was in danger. In the months that followed, I made changes. I installed a security system with cameras on every door. I opened a new bank account at a different credit union with only my name on it. I took a financial literacy course at the community center downtown, sitting in a room full of people my age who were all learning the same hard lesson. I signed up to volunteer with a local elder advocacy group, and eventually I started a small support circle at my church for people who had experienced financial manipulation by someone they trusted. We meet every other Wednesday. There are 11 of us now. We do not sit around feeling sorry for ourselves. We sit around making sure it never happens again. I am 62 years old. I have lived in this house for over 30 years. I have buried a husband, raised 3 children, and survived a woman who looked me in the eye every single day and lied with a smile so warm I mistook it for love. But I am still here. This house is still mine. My garden still grows. My daughters still call. My son still shows up on Saturdays. And every night before I go to sleep, I check the locks, turn off the lights, and stand in the hallway for just a moment looking at the family photos on the wall. Earl's face, Grant's graduation, Diane's baby, Phoebe in her uniform. I spent 62 years believing that family meant safety. And for the most part, it does. But sometimes the danger wears a familiar face, speaks in a kind voice, and sits at your kitchen table pouring coffee like it belongs there. My daughter saved my life that night. Not with a gun, not with a badge, with a phone call at 3 in the morning and 3 words I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Mom, trust me. And I did. Thank God I did. If this story touched your heart, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this video with someone you love, someone you want to protect, someone who needs to hear this today. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever trusted someone who turned out to be a completely different person? I read every single comment, and your stories matter to me just as much as the ones I tell. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. This is Buddy Saga, and I will see you in the next one.